In an exchange between Green Party leader Zach Polanski and the BBC's Nick Robinson, Robinson refused to label what Israel is doing as a genocide.
Israel's genocide in Gaza, and I know we'll get into a conversation about definitions, but even if you just call it the mass killing of lots of innocent people, I think has demonstrated exactly what they were saying to me.
The word, of course, matters, and I don't want to have a debate about the word, but I do want it noted that no court has said it's genocide, and Israel completely rejects the idea it's genocide. But as you say, you call it mass killing, you also call it
I feel I need to respond, though, that Amnesty International, various human rights organisations, and the UN Special Rapporteur, as well as lots and lots of genocide scholars.
In a sense, I don't want to drag us into a debate about language, but it's only fair to point that out.
He was rightly called out by Zach afterwards. So Zach Polanski tweeted this. Amnesty International say what is happening in Palestine is a genocide. The UN Special Rapporteur says it's a genocide. Countless genocide scholars say it's a genocide. How are we still doing this, and why is the BBC doing this? And Nick Robinson replied to defend his position. Simple answer, Zach. Our job is to report. We interview you and those you quote who use the word genocide. We do the same for those who disagree. We also report that no international court has yet made a judgment, nor has the UN. That's not me or the BBC taking sides or downplaying what's happened in Gaza. It's doing our job. Now, unsurprisingly, Robinson was called out on his bullshit. Sociologist and academic Martin Shaw responded with, "But Nick, you don't interview those who use the word genocide. I'm one of the most prominent British genocide scholars, and I called Israel's genocide in October 2023. I've had a lot of international media attention, but my BBC total in 30 months is one interview on Radio Ulster." Economist Professor Steve Hall responded to Shaw and gave his insight on the BBC. "I feel your pain. I was once feted by the BBC as an authority on crime and violence. BBC News, The Long View, Moral Maze, etc. A producer told me I was the next public intellectual. In 2009, I signed a BDS petition as a protest against Israel. Haven't heard from them since." So whilst Robinson is trying to claim this is supposedly about impartiality, we know in reality the BBC doesn't like its journalists being critical of Israel. But even Robinson's argument doesn't work because the UN has declared what Israel is doing as a genocide. The ICC, the ICJ have called this a plausible genocide. You've got multiple genocide scholars and multiple human rights organisations. They say it's a genocide. So why isn't the BBC saying that? I mean, it wouldn't be political bias to use the term genocide because they can just appeal to an authoritative institution. The BBC is engaging in journalistic malpractice when it refuses to objectively report. Now, if I claim the sky is blue, would the BBC refuse to say so for fear of taking sides? Kevin, what do you make of the interaction between Robinson and Polanski in that clip and Robinson's subsequent defence?
Honestly, I don't know who I have more contempt for, the people doing the genocide or the people supporting the genocide. They're both disgusting, reprehensible vermin. Yeah, Nick Robinson is not a journalist in any real sense at all. Neither are any number of the other people who are running cover for the Israeli government. Again, as was pointed out by one of the tweets you showed, they don't interview people who say it's genocide because, of course, they're running dogs for the Israeli government and nothing more. Again, as with the Christian right, I suppose in this case Zionist right, whatever, have done institutional capture on the BBC, on our political system, on our police forces, any number of different organisations which are there to, in theory, protect and serve the British people, but do no such thing because Israel basically is beyond reproach, according to the British establishment, which goes to show you that the British establishment do not care about the opinions of the British people, which are overwhelmingly against the actions of the Israeli government, both over the last 3 years and over the last 80 years. Nick Robinson is a joke and a clown. Zach Polanski did the right thing in calling this a genocide, as indeed he did the right thing of telling that other guy to piss off. Maybe in future it would be better if you could told Nick Robinson to piss off, because he is just as contemptible in my eyes as any other far-right piece of shit.
Now, of course, Turn Left is biased. We admit that. It's literally called Turn Left, and we are quite literally offering politics from a left-wing socialist perspective. That's fine. I don't care people cause buzz because we are. I also understand that the BBC wants to be impartial. The thing is, though, and part of the reason why I started Turn Left is I'm sick and tired of mainstream media outlets not being objective. They always appeal to subjectivity. They always appeal to, not being biased. But in this instance, just a little bit of objective reporting would say, okay, the UN, the ICJ, the ICC, human rights organizations, genocide scholars, right, have all said this one thing. It wouldn't be biased for Nick Robinson to say, okay, Zach Plancy, you're saying this is a genocide, and to be fair, you are referring to all these organizations that says so. In fact, BBC journalists should be more often going to Israel defenders or Israeli ambassadors saying, all these organizations are calling this a genocide. That would not be biased because you are appealing to an authoritative institution, yet they refuse to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the point about the BBC, or indeed journalists in general, is that they will always jump to the defense of Israel by saying, well, Israel denies that. They don't do that for anything else.
Nope.
No, they're absolutely fine with that. And as to the comparison between your fine organisation and the BBC, there is a significant difference because, A, like you say, it's in the name. You're called Turn Left. You're not hiding anything. You're not pretending to be completely impartial on all of this. And secondly, you're not receiving public money. No one is being arrested or fined for not paying for Turn Left. The British government or the British state is not represented by Turn Left in the way that the British Broadcasting Corporation very much is. So it is incumbent upon them as a public service organisation with the word British in it, therefore representing in theory the people of Britain, to actually be impartial. And they are not. They are very, very partial towards the Israeli government.